So yes, I reused the slide theme from last time because it was too perfect to not use. So we're doing a swap meet as we have done previously, and hopefully folks have either had a chance or will get the chance to share something as well as take something away. So I'll kick stuff off, and then as we go along, we can each add in what we want to add in. There were blank slides that people could fill in. And after the event, you'll receive an email with a post-event quiz and a feedback form. Once you complete the quiz, which is probably not too difficult if you paid any attention whatsoever to what was going on, you'll get an email with a PDF of a 1-hour PD certificate. So you get that going on. I had another slide in here because originally I thought we were going to have 1 billion people show up, and it said, please limit yourself to 2 books. And then I looked at the sign up list. I was like, there's only like maybe a dozen people. And then I started putting books in, and I put like 30 books. So I had to kind of get rid of that. But I did organize it by sort of general grade levels, because I figured that some folks are going to be more interested in certain grade levels than others. And there are still a bunch of blank slides in here in case people wanted to come in and add stuff. But I figure we'll jump in with just start at the beginning and work our way through. And we can kind of, if people want to jump in and add stuff, that's great. But I'm going to start with one of my favorites. I love the book, Sam and Dave Dig a Hole. This book, as a middle grades teacher, I want to share this with all of my students. And every time somebody talks about, I need a picture book, this is the one I recommend because I love this book so much. It's got some really cool features to it that, if you're paying close attention, really reward you for your attention to the art. And the story is very simple and very basic, but the way that they use art and the layout is really fun, and definitely is the ending, I think, could be a great prompt for like bigger kid writing too. And then I recently read How Dinosaurs Went Extinct, a safety guide, which was really fun, really funny. It's basically a family goes on a trip to the museum, and they're looking at all the dinosaurs, and the kid's all amazed. And then the dad says, well, I'll tell you the real reason why the dinosaurs went extinct. And as he goes through them, they're all things the kid does, like, they never changed their underwear, and they ran around with scissors and stuff like that. So it's the kid kind of, I'm not going to do that anymore. So it's kind of fun. So I think that was all we had for picture books, but if anybody has a picture book they want to share, by all means. Okay, we'll get Chrissy wants to tag in. That's awesome. Give her a chance to do that. Sorry, just kind of trying to keep an eye on all the moving parts here. Oh, and here comes
Sorry,
Jess.
my dog gets riled up when I talk. So like, he doesn't like if he thinks I'm giving attention to someone else. So I had to put him away. So I have some picture books, although they're nonfiction picture books. I don't know if there was a section for nonfiction.
Sure. There wasn't a separate one, but
okay. Well, so my book I have here, it's Does It Fart? And I really, really like this book. If you've seen anything on Twitter, I did a whole lesson of Does It Fart with kids, and it was such a success. What I was using it for, though, was actually they had to be like masters of information, because I always tell them that's my title from Rutgers. I'm a master of information. So they had to be a master of information. So it was really kind of it was a database challenge. And for my 3rd graders, it was a review of Destiny Discover. And so they had to quickly search. So like the one page would be like, whatever, this is a horse or this is a parrot. So the 3rd graders had to search parrot real quick, and they had the first one to come up with the Dewey Decimal Number, was the master of information for that one. But then with 4th and 5th graders, we're using different databases, and I would give them a specific question related to it, like, a goat, like how many stomachs does a goat have? And they had to find that information in the thing. And then the reward for all the kids was finding out, does it fart? And I had made it into a slideshow and included YouTube videos of the animal farting, if it does in fact fart. And they were like losing it. But the whole real thing about it was just in research in general. And so I know there is an acronym for fart with research. I'm have my own where it's just, is it fact or opinion? And then who is the author? Do they have authority? Like, are they an expert? And what's their agenda? You know, and then is it reliable? Can you find it in other places? And then T, is it timely? Is it current information? And so that's the whole thing when you're considering information, you know, does this information smell funny to you? Or is this, you know, do you think that this is correct? So always consider fart when you're looking stuff up. And then these authors also have it in Spanish as well, which is awesome for my kids. And then they have another book too, True or Poo, which is really nice because it's basically a kid's guide to animal facts and fakes. And I love using this with, if you know, there's that website for saving the endangered tree octopus. And so I love using that. And then again, talking about kind of fake information and how stuff can be created. And so that one, I plan on going more in depth next year. I think I'm going to be creating a lot of fake websites is basically what I see in my future. And so, yes, I saw, so Jess is saying about the high school book, Does It Fart? Or they wanted a high school equivalent. So there is a Does It Fart for adults. That's actually how it started. It was an adult's book. And there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos related to it too by I can't remember if it was an author or a teacher who made the videos. I think it was a teacher that made it for, and they put them on YouTube during COVID. And so it was a whole thing, but there's also a whole like series with like scientists talking about does it fart or not. And let me just tell you though, like the kids still talk about that lesson, and I do some really cool stuff. I have lots of awesome stuff, but they love this farting one. I think the videos just pushed it over.
I think it's hard to go wrong with farts.
Well, it actually all started because we had baby chicks in the library, and kids kept asking me if they fart. And so then it was like, you know what, I could tell them the answer, but why not turn this into something? And so that is one of the things. It's not a chick, but it's a parrot. And that's where we learn birds don't fart. And so it's a
good to know. Good to know. Does anybody have any early chapter books they want to share? This is my particular kryptonite area. I don't have much that I think goes in early grades. I have some stuff that's like upper early grades, but I don't really have early grades. Beth Raff, you want to jump in? Go for it.
I was just trying to slide it in there. I know it's called, I just read it today, Don't Feed the Bear. And we did it for Camp Read a Lot. We had tents in my library. I got a little grant from the PTO and we did it with the first graders. And the book is about a park ranger and a bear who kind of get into a disagreement about, you know, the park ranger puts up signs, don't feed the bear, and the bear gets back and says, you know, feed the bear, and they do it through signs. And then, of course, in the end, they end up sharing the food. And so it's just fun. The pictures are really fun. It's by Kathleen Doherty. Did I slip it in there on a slide? I thought I started to. But
don't see it at the moment, but I'm sure we will get it in here at some point or another.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I wore like a park ranger like hat, and the kids liked it a lot. There it is. Yeah. I have to
there we go.
I'll upload the cover. But it was a lot of fun.
Very nice. Anybody else got one they want to toss in?
I don't have a copy of it, but I love the Word Travelers. And it's all about the origins of words, and it takes you through different countries. So you learn about countries and that like etymology of words, which I think is very cool. Really, really, like they're really fun. I really love them.
The Word Travelers. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them now.
Okay. I had, in getting some middle school stuff, I had gotten some stuff that was maybe a little bit younger than what my students were looking for. But I still really enjoyed these. I ended up with Living with Viola, which is about I forget if I think she's 10 years old. So it's a little bit on the younger, but, and she's the new kid at school, and she's really anxious because she's the new kid at school, and her anxiety takes the form of basically a ghost that she calls Viola, and her name is Olivia. So it's sort of like a ghost of herself. And it's a really great book. She's first generation Chinese American, and her family doesn't do mental illness, doesn't do mental health. And so she's trying to figure out how to talk about this with her family. And it's not, I'm making it sound like it's a very heavy story, and it's got, some anxiety in it, but it ends up having a very important and powerful resolution. So I thought that was a great one for that sort of age range. I also loved Shine On Luz Feliz. This kid finds out that her dad was married before the current marriage that produced Luz, and that she's got a half sister who ends up coming to live with her because of the violence that's going on in her country. And she's got to try and figure out how to sort of deal with that and incorporate that. And it's an interesting one. And the Lost Girl, Anne Ursu, I have come to love Anne Ursu in the past year. She writes, I haven't read something bad that she has written. And this one's a fun one for fifth graders, a pair of twins who are opposites, and they have to try and their parents purposely split them up so they can develop their own cells because they're always just together. And it ends up being it seems like it's realistic fiction through most of it, and then it takes sort of a fantasy turn about 3/4 of the way through in a really interesting way. So really enjoyable. So that was that stuff. And then middle grades is like my bread and butter. So, and again, I'm hogging the mic a little bit, and I apologize, but there's some awesome stuff here. I just read Nick Blake and the Remarkables. This is Angie Thomas's first middle grades title. It is so good. It is way better than Harry Potter. It's got a really interesting set of characters with a really interesting story. It's got some of the familiar chosen one elements, but it's also got some different twists and turns to it that kind of put some of that in a different light and a different angle. Really enjoyable. I can't wait for the next one. I tore through this one. And then The Many Assassinations of Samir, the Seller of Dreams by Daniel Nayeri. I know he wrote the award-winning book that is an older book. This is more of a middle, maybe even a upper elementary. And it is funny and beautifully written and not what it seems to be. And it's a great, I could totally see this being an awesome read aloud. I could see kids devouring this book. It's great. It's sort of like stories within stories, but they all kind of string together. It was really, I picked it up because I saw his name and I was really blown away by it. The Lock-Eater is maybe my favorite book of the past year. I loved this book. Oh my gosh. So it's a fantasy story in a world where magic is a thing. But they use magic. So there's two kinds of magic. And one, the kind of magic of our protagonist, the country she lives in, they use magic to power their machines. And so there's like magic powered robots and stuff. And then there's an opposing camp of magic, and they use magic to sort of make nature sort of do their bidding. So it's like machine versus nature with magic sort of as a conduit. And this girl is an orphan who has this ability to open any lock that she encounters. And everybody thinks it's just sort of like, oh, she happened to be there when they forgot to lock the door, or, oh, she managed to hit it in such a way that it jostled it loose. And nobody realizes this is like an actual power that she has. And she kind of, through a series of accidental connections, she ends up going on this adventure, this quest, and she is all excited about it at first, but then as it goes on, she kind of realizes like, oh man, quests are like hard and dangerous and like bad things happen, and maybe this isn't as awesome as I thought it was. And she kind of has to sort of grow into being someone who's out in the world and connecting with people that she hadn't connected with before. And then one more is Good Different. I just read this one. This is an Own Voices book by an autistic author. And it's all about being an autistic kid in a school who doesn't know that she's autistic, doesn't have the vocabulary to talk about what she's experiencing until she is she gets tickets to Dragon Con for her birthday. And when she goes, she encounters someone who is saying, oh yeah, and I sometimes I feel I'm overwhelmed. So I have these like little earplugs that I use to help me calm down. Would you like a set? And she takes them and she's like, wait a minute, there's other people that are like this. And she starts to realize it's not just her, that she's not the broken kid that can't fit in at school. And she's having a big issue at school because she lost her composure at one point because she was so overstimulated and she hit somebody. And it wasn't an on purpose thing, but now she is the bad kid who like attacks people, and she's getting that reputation at school. But it's a really wonderful book, and I really enjoyed the experience of getting, here's what autism is like for some people, to kind of help put readers in those shoes if they haven't been there. So I'll shut up. I'm going to hand the mic over to who brought us. Oh, Work in Progress. Yes. Beth, tell us about it. I want to read this, but I haven't gotten there yet.
I just finished reading it to all 4 of my 4th grades. Jarrett talked about it at the conference. It is really autobiographical. It's about how he was bullied in 4th grade. And from then on until 7th grade, he basically withdrew. He buried himself in big clothes, and doesn't talk to anyone, and eats by himself until 7th grade, when he kind of, things start to change, and he starts to think about whether he wants to be like this. It's written in verse, and the way the words are written on the page, along with the illustrations, are really, really powerful. And it does have a positive ending. And you can, if you know Jared at all, there's a boy who comes into the story who likes to skateboard, and I know that Jarrett skateboards, so I know that this story contains a lot of himself, and he's really personally been overwhelmed by the response, and I can't say enough about it. I had the reading specialist sub for me, and she was blown away by reading it to them. So,
can I just pop in for a second? Also, if you weren't aware, for a Work in Progress, it's the middle school world global read aloud for this year too.
yeah.
So in October, so that's what I plan on using with my 5th graders then. And I just read it too, Beth, and it was really, really good. And it was just, I think, also really good to see a male character in that. I have a few books that talk about eating disorders and stuff, and I personally suffer with eating disorders years ago, and so to see a male character having some of those similar things, I think is good. And I think also my kids, at school think, like, if you hear the word fat, like, it's a bad word, and it's like, but I feel like, it opens up conversations.
It was
and it's also just being in verse is awesome.
Yeah, it was such an empathy builder, because like, he talks to himself a lot in the book, and the self-talk is all negative, and the kids start getting really mad. They're like, why is he doing that? And oh my God, not again. And there's so many opportunities to talk about where you can get help. And then there was an interesting question about, well, was he really fat, or did he just think he was fat? Like, how fat was he? And it just opened up so many doors. And yes, if you want the female version, Starfish is written in verse, right? That's an amazing book too, if you wanted to pair them together somehow.
Did you I'm sorry to jump in again. So did you share the illustrations with the kids too? Like, that's what I was thinking, because I was thinking, do I want to take pictures and have them on the screen behind me so they're seeing that as well? Because I feel like that added so much to it. Those, the scribble and
the way the words are on the page. Yeah, there's whole pages where it's blacked out. There's one point where he faints, and the page is just covered with black, and then words start to reappear. So yeah, I think it would be really powerful to have pictures of the pages, and just to show how much emotion you can convey in so few words, because it is written in verse. It's just really powerful.
Sounds like this would be a good one to do with like an Elmo, almost, like have it projected someplace while you were reading it. Yes. So the kids could follow along and see.
Yes, and because yes, it definitely adds to it. And the way the pictures start to, even today, a kid said to me, well, the pictures started to get more positive at the end that he was drawing in the book. So they caught everything. They didn't miss a trick, these kids. Yeah, it was. I would love. There are so many questions we have for Jarrett about as follow-ups to this. Yeah, and they were like, "Is there another book?" I said, "He just wrote this one."
Good that they're that enthused that they're have to let.
Yes, I will let them know.
Okay, Oh, you muted yourself, Steve. That's okay. This one's mine. Chester Keane Cracks the Code by Kekla Magoon. If you're familiar with her, she's written a bunch of sort of middle school YA, The Rocket River, and a bunch of really good ones. So this is, I believe, her first middle grade, and it's a great story. It is a mystery. It was nominated for an Edgar. It didn't win, but it was like a finalist. So it's about this kid, Chester Keane, and he lives with his mom and his dad. He hasn't seen his dad in a long time, but he gets these emails from him. And so he gets these messages that puts him on a scavenger hunt. And he is convinced that his dad like worked for the CIA or something. So he's getting these like spy coded messages, and he's kind of a bit of a loner, eats his lunch alone at school, but he meets this girl named Sky at school who kind of won't leave him alone, and just kind of inserts herself into his scavenger hunt. And it leads them on, for all kinds of things, and they end up having to like foil a heist and whatnot. And so if you don't want to hear any spoilers, close your ears, because you should know, like if you're going to book talk this and then you're going to recommend it and whatnot. So he finds out towards the end that his mom is the one that's been sending him the messages, not his dad. His dad abandoned them, and his mom doesn't bad talk him, trash talk him. His mom was like, I know your dad loves you. And he's like, but he sends me birthday gifts. Well, it's just been his mom all these years. But she didn't want him to think that ill of his father, whatever. I don't know. Personally, I think she's a little too nice about it, but and so his mom is going to get remarried. They're going to move in with his mom's boyfriend, who he likes, and it turns out that Sky is the boyfriend's daughter, and she knew about all of this, but Chester didn't. So he really feels betrayed by his mother, and it all kind of works out, and they do work it out. And it ends up being a happy ending. But it definitely kind of shows that like sometimes grown-ups screw up, and they mean well, but they don't always do the right thing, and it's frustrating for kids. So anyway, so there's some family drama, and it's a good mystery, and I love anything with puzzles and clues. Sorry, I'm like you, Steve. I could literally put in 30 or 40 for each category myself. I'm sure you've heard of Free Water. It won the Newbery and the Coretta Scott King. So I'm sure you've read all about it, but if you haven't read it, definitely read it. It's really, really good. It's about a boy who's escaping from slavery. He's an enslaved person and escapes from the plantation and goes into the swamps. Like it's based on the Great Dismal Swamp. It's a little bit, she takes some, literary license, but it is based on like the Great Dismal Swamp and the free Black communities that sprang up there, with people that were escaping being enslaved and all of that. So it's really, really good. They're all like all the side characters are well drawn, and it's excellent. Okay. So sorry, that air quality at school is still bad. If you don't know Christina Diaz-Gonzalez, you should. These are just 3 out of her books. They are the most recent. Nobody really knew who she was for a while, and I even had some of her books, and I hadn't read any of them, and she wasn't really on my radar. But these 3 are excellent. So Concealed won the Edgar. She was the first Latina middle grade to even be nominated, and she won. That one is about a girl who's in her family is in the witness protection program. The Bluest Sky is about the Mariel boat lift. That one is a really good one too. These all have awesome like family dynamics and whatnot. And Invisible, yeah, Invisible would be a really good one to do as a class read or a book club read. It's her first graphic novel. And Invisible and Blue Sky are they're winning all kinds of state awards. They're on all kinds of state lists. Invisible is the first graphic novel. And I'm buying extra copies. I have 2, but I'm going to buy extra copies because it's been popular this year. And that one is about a group of kids. So everyone in their school, all the kids have to do some sort of community service. This way, the principal in their school get, like, I don't know, grants or accolades or whatever. They get points somehow, something, I don't know. Everybody has to do some sort of community service. Well, these kids, they kind of stick them all to work in the cafeteria. They're all Hispanic. And there are a lot of assumptions about that they would all know each other, that they'd all come from the same culture, which of course they don't. They don't know each other. One of them doesn't even speak Spanish. Like, it's, yeah. So these kids are all working together, and they work, I think it's before school. I think it's before school. They go in and they work like in the cafeteria. And one of the things they have to do is take out the trash. So they take, like some extra food, whatever, they take out the trash. And the cafeteria, the lady who runs the cafeteria is totally racist jerk. So when they take out the trash, they find a woman and a young child who are living in a van just outside, like on the other side of the fence from the school property. So they're throwing this food out anyway. They give her food. And some of them start bringing stuff like toys from home for the little girl and stuff. They're just loving giving children who see someone in need and they're trying to help her. Well, I'm not going to say it because it's being recorded. The lady who runs the cafeteria thinks they're stealing and accuses them of stealing. Now, when the book opens up, they're all sitting in the principal's office and they're each telling their story. So each section of the book is from a different character's point of view. They're each telling their story. And come to find out, again, spoiler alert, but come to find out at the end when they all explain what's happening, what's really happening is, the lunch lady is, on the outs, and these kids are getting an award. Now, some of it, like the cynic in me, and some of the kids also kind of notice that it's like, well, the principal's really only kind of doing this. Oh, yes, Jess, for sure. Breakfast Club for middle school, 100%. Yeah. And so you wonder if, like, they're really only doing this award because they kind of got found out, and that because these kids did this this great community service thing, they got some sort of award or something, and so the kids are getting some kind of award. So it's good, but it also could be, a really good talking point that it's like, are they really proud of these kids? Oh yeah, there's definitely a bunch of Spanish in it, and yep, yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really good. And she's such a nice, oh my God, she would be awesome to have at your school. She's really good. Really good. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead, Lee. You seemed like you were kind of at your, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry. Jess, you want to dive in?
Yes. Okay. I actually just finished this one yesterday. I've been reading a lot of really heavy stuff and I needed a break, and this was recommended to me, and I'm so glad I picked it up because, okay, so this is, if anyone loves Kelly Yang, this would be great. It would be great for, I would say like 5th to 8th grade. It would be really good for, I'm trying to, I put the author's name there. I was going to look it up. The author is Nicole Chen. It's about Pearl Lee. And she's going into 7th grade, I believe, or it's the summer between 7th and 8th. Anyway, she's a middle schooler. Typical girl. She's got 2 best friends she likes to hang out with, but where this story really, I think opens up is there's kind of like 2 main things going on. She's an artist, and this takes place in Silicon Valley. Her parents have like a really tech codey startup. Her sister's in high school and wants to be a coder, and and she's the artist. So she makes these little crochet dolls that have a Japanese name that I'm not going to pronounce correctly, so I don't want to try. But she's like very artistic. Her best friends are artistic. Like that's where she is, and she feels like her parents don't understand her. They don't know. She doesn't feel like she fits into her family. But where she does fit in is at the boba time, which is the boba tea shop that her and her best friends hang out. And with the recession, yes, Lee, thank you. That is exactly. I don't even want to try to pronounce it. I looked it up. They're very cute though. Like it did get me to do a little bit of research. I was like, what are these dolls? They're very cute. And apparently they're very trendy in middle schoolers. I also found out. I was talking to my niece about this. Yeah, they're cute starter kits. The boba time is facing some financial difficulties, and so Pearl's like, I'm going to save this business by selling my little art, like her crochet dolls. And then she realizes she's going to kind of need her parents to help, but does she tell them what she's doing? Does she lie? And also what's going on in the background, so many times I think when we talk about different like marginalized groups, it's the entire focus of the story. This, you see a lot about what it's like to be an immigrant, a first generation, having language barriers, but it's just happening, and it's not the focus, it's just there, and it's done so well. I was like, oh, this is really great to see. Like, it's just so subtly done. Like some of the characters are having trouble with English and communication. And so you get to see all of that play out without it being like the main storyline. And I would say that's where it also, like the side characters are fantastic. So if anyone's looking for like a happy read, I really recommend Boba Time for Pearl Lee. Finished it yesterday. Really, really good.
So Lisa let me know that she's not going to be able to make it, but she wanted to make sure that she had at least one book in here. She said she might put a couple others in as well later. But I mean, I'm sure that everybody here has probably read The One and Only Ivan and or The One and Only Bob. I literally finished The One and Only Bob right around the time that I found out that the third book was coming out. So I haven't got my hands on it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I can see Lisa said the same thing. She hasn't gotten to it yet, but I have to imagine that it's going to be pretty great. So I'm looking forward to that one. Anybody have any other middle grade titles they want to toss in? Oh, that's awesome.
I have here, I don't know if any of you have read A Rover's Story.
I haven't read
is
it yet,
also,
but I want to read it.
well, that is the upper grade or the middle grade they consider global read aloud for this year, again in October. So I wanted to do this as a one school, one book thing, and we are going to do it, but I wanted to tie it in with the global read aloud, but now it looks like we're going to do it in this, January or sometime like that instead, just because they're feeling rushed at the end of the year to get I want a committee together. I don't want it to be just all me telling teachers you're doing this book. But anyway, it's really awesome. Like I laughed, I cried some more. It was really, really good. And it's told 2 points of view. It's told from the rover's point of view. So it's like, he's developed this personality kind of like this AI kind of thing. And so it's just really, really nice there hearing his point of view. But then also as a school assignment, a girl had to write a letter to the rover, and there was also like a naming contest thing too. So it's like so many things you could do, in school with it. But anyway, they had to write a letter to the rover, and then that just kind of became her thing. It was kind of like a diary. She just wrote to him, and I mean, this goes until the girl's like 35 years old. I mean, it's like it's a whole thing. But also it turns out the girl, her mother is actually the scientist that codes the rover. And so it's just so neat, like all the things you can pull in. SEL, obviously STEM and all like that. but just things you wouldn't even think of that you can pull in. Like music is a huge component of it. So like our music teacher actually wants to have kids, each grade level chorus compose their own song. But there's this whole thing, like I could totally see having kids make their playlists of like, what their life playlist. And so just so much that you could do with it that I really, really loved it. And I would say, we're going to read it. So as far as grades, we're grades 3 through 5 school. But we do also have some, like we have autism classrooms too, where they're technically at a lower level, that I could see reading this, since you're, with all different ages. You might be pushing it, trying to do it with K through 5, but I think you could. I really do think you could. You just might need some, obviously some either front loading of vocabulary or just discussing it as you go along, really discussing some of that stuff. But I mean, as I was just reading, I'm taking page after page of notes of things like, oh, we could do this with that, and things we could do with it. And then just it was actually just even funny this week with the air quality, because so many people are commenting. It's like, especially yesterday, it's like those pictures from Mars, and they're like, like the rovers, and everyone's talking about that. And it's like, yeah, like I feel like I could even tie it in with that. Like, you remember when it was orange outside, or, but there's so much I think that could go with it. And I just, again, love that it's like the global read aloud, and you have people all over the world reading the same book at that time. I would definitely recommend it as a read aloud for there. And what's really also awesome is that each part, kind of, not that it ends on a cliffhanger, but each part, once leaves you wanting more. You want to read the next part. So I know, like, kids, they hear that one, they're going to want the next. So I really liked that.
Love it. Lee, do you want to shout out those titles just so they're in the video, so that if people catch the
Sure.
recording later?
Yeah, just, me, I can list about 100.
There's some great
Canyon's
ones
Edge
there.
by Dusty Bowling. She's the one that won. She's the one that wrote the one about the girl with no arms.
Cactus, something like significant life, cactus. There's a cactus.
Yes, that one.
Insignificant events in the life of a cactus.
Life of a
It's so
Cactus.
funny. I love that
Yes.
book. I recommend it to kids all the time. Like,
Yeah,
you
me
would not
too.
think a book with a girl that has no arms, it would be funny. It's hilarious.
But it is, yeah. And there's a mystery to it too. And Canyon's Edge is a survival story. And I'm pretty sure that one's in verse, actually.
It's a combination. It's really interesting because it starts in prose when she's having her difficulties talking with her father about something that has happened.
Yes.
And then when the survival part kicks in, it goes into verse.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it comes back to prose. It's really interesting how she uses the format to kind of tell part of the story.
Yeah. And it's really survival, and she has to save her dad. And yeah, it's good. I love survival stories. The Fort by Gordon Corman. Everybody knows him. The Door of No Return by Kwame Alexander. Everybody knows him too. But
I know him, but I've never heard of that book. What's the book?
Oh my God. So it's the first book where so it takes place in like 1862 in the Kingdom of Ghana, which is not the same as the current country. And you know how he feels about Ghana. He visits there and built a library and everything there. And it's a boy who's just living his life. He loves going to school. They're learning Shakespeare in school. He has a crush on a girl, but his cousin, who's a bully, has a crush on the same girl. And so he's just kind of living his best life. He loves to swim. He trains in the river. And so there are two villages that are sort of quasi-connected. And historically, so like, 100 years before or something, those two villages were warring villages. But the way they do it in the 1800s is instead of having some sort of a battle or whatever, they each send a representative. It's like a wrestler kind of and they have this big, almost like a big festival, whatnot. And the wrestlers, compete, and whichever one wins, the other village has to sort of send them stuff all year. And I don't even remember all of what they have to do because that's a small part of it. But so at this year's tournament, the main character's older brother is chosen to be the representative. There's a terrible tragedy, and the person he's wrestling against ends up dying. So he literally has to pay the price with his life. And the younger brother is captured and sold into slavery. And at the end of the book, he goes through the door of no return, which is the real place on the coast of West Africa that you can go and visit. Kwame Alexander did. You know, big like stone fort, and you go through this archway, and it was the door of no return, because once you went through it, you were never seen again by your family. You know, he had avoided this topic, I think, for a very long time. I wasn't sure he wanted to do it, but and this is supposed to be the first of, I think, a trilogy. And he hinted that there may be, that some of the other books may be from different points of view. So I'm not sure how, you know, where he's going with it, but oh my God, it was so good, so good. And Maisie Chen's Last Chance, Lisa Yee is phenomenal. You know, again, if you like Kelly Yang, Attack the Black Rectangles is about censorship. And Amy got permission from Jane Yolen to use Devil's Arithmetic as the book that is being censored. And it's really powerful, very good.
I got to hear her speak at NJCTE a month or so back.
She is phenomenal.
Ooh.
Yeah, she has very strong feelings, and she is a very strong advocate for kids. And yeah, she is a mensch. She is an amazing human being. Yeah, but she doesn't hold back.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. She lit the room on fire.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we jump into a little bit of YA, because I know that some of us like that and or might just prefer it our personal selves. And again, because I set it up, I get to go first, haha. But I've been trying to read my way through both my public library and my school library and get a bunch of new ideas. But on the subject of unmentionable things, I got this recently, and it's a high schooler who writes an anonymous, heavily researched and cited sex health blog for the teens at her school, basically. And they give her, like, they send her questions and she answers them with like actual real facts. And there's a local mayoral candidate who runs a very polarizing, not debate, campaign using the blog and xenophobia to rile up her base. Don't know where I've heard about that kind of thing before. So it's a really interesting sort of look at how some of that stuff impacts actual people, and that it's not just rhetoric that people get to say with no consequences. It's really interesting, and it's really well done, and it's got some really funny moments to it. Like, it's not just serious all the way through. I'm not a huge, I would not consider myself a romance fan necessarily, but I love Donuts and Other Proclamations of Love. It's about a kid who, he and his grandfather are the only family they each have. And he's about to graduate high school, and he and his grandfather are going to just drive around the country going to food events and running their food truck. And that's all this kid wants to do. But then he kind of gets tangled up with this super overachiever in his high school who kind of co-ops some of his skills to work on a project. And he can't stand her. And of course, it's an enemies to lovers sort of a situation. But there are funny moments, but it's not that the character is funny. It's that the situations are kind of funny. It's written as a very realistic sort of story, and it's really wonderful. And there's some beautiful moments to it that just blew me away. My only hold back on putting it in middle school is there is some sex, and it's consensual and it's off the page, but there's a little bit of steaminess in one or two scenes. And there's a couple of places where the language is kind of sharp, but if that's not a concern, then those were the only things that I kind of put it a little more toward my high school than my middle school. Not My Problem I'm thinking it's Sierra Smith, but it's Irish, so it might be Cara, who knows? But if you have watched Dairy Girls on Netflix, this is Dairy Girls in modern time.
It's probably Kira.
Might be Kira.
Yeah.
Could absolutely be. I'm not an audiobook person, but I got this as an audiobook specifically because Amy Herman said, if you listen to it, it is like listening to Dairy Girls. And it absolutely was. The reader is Irish. And so it's like all coming across with the accents and everything. It's beautiful. The story is hilarious, but also really deep. I loved it. I absolutely love this story. It's so good. You Should See Me in a Crown. You've probably seen, heard, read. Great book. Situation that I hadn't really heard of before. I guess this maybe is a real thing, that there are places where prom is such a big deal that people get scholarships for winning prom. I don't know, but that's sort of the setup for this story, is that this girl doesn't have, she's not from means, but her town is very well off. So there, she loses a scholarship. And so she says, the only way I can go to the school I want to go to is if I win prom queen. But she's gay and she's not super popular. And her friends are like, hell with it, we're getting you elected. And so she's got to go through the whole prom stuff, all these different events. And she ends up having to work with a former best friend who is now sort of a little bit of an enemy. And it's very tense. And there's also a new girl who's super cute, who's running for prom queen, and she's got to run against this girl that she thinks is pretty cute. Some of it is hilarious. There are some real tough moments in this one. There's some real overt racism and some overt homophobia. But it eventually gets to a good place. And I really love the friendships in this are beautiful, really beautiful. So we got a couple from people who aren't here, and that's okay. I haven't read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but I know that
awesome.
It is super popular. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Oh God, it's been a while since I read it. Yeah, it's for fans of like Karen McManus. I think it's better written than Karen McManus. Oh God, I don't remember. I don't remember anything about it, but I loved it.
I also think that the twist is better. Like, I feel like you see Karen McManus coming like I still love a good thriller. I think this one does a better job of leaving you like, what's gonna happen? I mean, eventually you figure it out, but it takes you longer to get there than with the Karen McManus.
Yeah.
I listened to it.
It was kind of inspired by Serial, that first podcast, even down to like, the name of the guy that they think killed her, is similar.
Didn't she say that was her? Like, she was listening to a lot of podcasts when she was writing that, when she was writing this.
Yeah. But it is good, and it's been super popular in my school. Yeah.
I just read One of Us is Lying just recently, and I know I'm like years behind on that, but I just read it and I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but
right. But the kids love it. The kids don't care if it's crap. They love it. Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen
they don't see it coming a mile away because they don't have the experience, the life experience, the reading experience. So it's all new to them. So,
Right.
They haven't read Agatha Christie and all, and watched all the movies and.
Yeah. I have seen books by Shane Burkall, but I don't think I've seen this one specifically, but obviously he's someone who's got some issues that he's dealing with. And I have heard that his writing is very good.
Very funny. Like, he has the greatest sense of humor. About like his first one, I think, is like Crying While Laughing or something.
Yes.
But it's
laughing in my underwear or something.
Yes,
laughing at my nightmare.
Yes.
Nightmare, that's it.
He has such a great sense of humor. I mean, I will say that this has very detailed about how he and his girlfriend have sex. So just an FYI, like it's pretty detailed how that has to happen. Because he's in a wheelchair and he has like such like, his medical problems, but it's informative. and just the book in general, though, it's just, he has a really good sense of humor and he's very blunt and honest about, yep, this sucks.
Yeah. So I've been having my public librarian in doing book talks this week. And one of the books that she's book talking would be similar to this, but more appropriate for middle school and certainly for high school. The author is Chaz Hayden, and he has spinal muscular dystrophy, which I don't know if that's the same thing Shane Burkall has. But he's also in a power wheelchair, and he actually does need a full-time nurse. So he moves to New Jersey from California, and he wants to be known for more than just being the kid in the power wheelchair. And until he finds a new nurse, his mom has to go with him to school, and like no high schooler wants their mom with them, you know? So he's looking for a new nurse. And he ends up she's actually like a nursing student, and she's only 19, she's young. And she's kind of hidden some things about her past. I think she had trouble with drugs or something. I haven't read it, but Chaz Hayden, the author himself, also has spinal muscular dystrophy. So he weaves in practical things and information about his condition and how he has to function. But without making that the focus of the story, it's just kind of woven in naturally. And that one is called The First Thing About You, I think. It kind of looks like dots, like small dots on the cover. It's Chaz Hayden, Haydn. And it's because his favorite question when getting to know people is, what's your favorite color? And so he kind of has this theory that people who are green and purples are not compatible with him. He likes oranges and yellows and reds because they're more like adventurous and thrilling. And yeah, so that's his color theory.
Love it. So we're getting relatively close to the end of our hour. We've still got quite a few books. So I'm going to just encourage us to go real
fast. Red Palace is the only one I care to really talk about a lot. Red Palace by June Her. She also wrote The Forest of Stolen Girls, historical fiction like medieval Korea. This is a mystery. It won the Edgar Award for YA this year. And it's about a girl who's a palace nurse. And this is like a job that is like a step up socially for her. Thanks, Beth. But also precarious because you do one wrong step, with the royal family. And there are all these political machinations. The prince is accused of murdering these nurses and these women and nurses. And so there's like palace intrigue and there's a little romance as well because the main character meets up with a very young policeman, and the two of them are solving this crime and putting themselves in danger. But there's a little romance too. So that one's really good. Everybody probably read this one already. It's in verse. It's about the Donner Party. So if you don't know what that is, it's got excerpts from like diaries, and so it's very well researched. It's all in verse, and it's got all different points of view. It's excellent. And it was hard to get. Walls, and it's an unusual, like all the kids love World War II. This is after World War II, and it's in the few days leading up to the building of the Berlin Wall. It's excellent, and it alternates with actual like photographs and images, news clips, and it explains the history of like what was going on and whatnot. So it's kind of an alternate format. Really good.
Okay, since there's not enough time, skip to my second one because as we're talking, I was like, wait, I want to plug this book because it never got the love it needed. This is a teenage heist novel. I've yet to find anything like this. It's a Breakfast Club vibe, five best friends. One of the girls, super smart, kindest girl ever, gets into MIT. She gets she doesn't get any aid because her dad's a deadbeat dad, but he's a CEO of a company and's got like millions of dollars. So they decide that they're going to steal his money to get her the money that she needs to go to school. And it's like this huge tech heist. And then some of them start to feel guilty, and it really grapples with like ethics and morality and like what is okay, like kind of like a Robin Hood situation. Can we steal from the rich to give to the poor? Really, really good. I cannot recommend it enough. It never got the love that it needed. And I feel like somebody told me that Netflix opted it. So like bought it too to make it into a show.
Is that one okay for middle school, Jess?
I don't remember anything bad in it. Like I don't remember there being like any like crazy sex or anything like that. It's really good.
Nice. So we got some professional titles in here too. Passive program, nice. Always good. I'm just going to kind of flip through these because I think
Yeah.
we can all kind of get the gist of them. I got sent a copy of this to advanced review. So good. So many great stories and suggestions for how to use them. And teasing talent defines more. Oh, that's a nice one. Okay. I like that. And then we've got some just for fun titles. And I see folks have a couple. I'm just going to plug the library at Mount Char, which is a little bit older, but it is so good. I got the rec offline from Reddit's book channel, and it is just a huge mix of like every genre you can ever think of. It kind of falls into horror, kind of, sort of, but it's also a bunch of other stuff. I can't even talk much about it without giving away all sorts of stuff that goes on. It's just twists and turns, and like nothing is what it seems. And it's really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Lisa had the happy life of Isadora Bentley, researcher at a college who prefers to work alone, live alone, be alone until she begins some research of her own on being happy. Okay. All right. I see where you're going there.
I love that
And
one.
you read this?
I love the whole series. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's hilarious.
Okay. Quirky characters, good mystery, humor mixed in. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it takes place in it's in England, and it's like a retirement community. And there are all these old people, and one lady, and they all have really strong personalities. And the one lady used to be like in MI6 or whatever it was called. And, so she was a spy, and the other, and there's sort of a Marple type character. And oh my God, it's just hilarious. Yeah.
That sounds good. I might have to add that to my list. That kind of reminds me of there's a I think it's a series, and I cannot remember the name to save my life, but there's an old lady who's a serial killer, but she's like sweet old lady when she's not serial killing people. I'll have to try and track down the title of that. Yeah, it's supposed to be sort of like kind of funny and weird and wild.
When I was a kid, I read the Mrs. Polifax mysteries, and those were awesome. It was a little old retired lady who becomes a spy. Yeah.
I love it. Anything else we want to toss in before we wrap it up for the night? I mean, I know that we could probably all sit here and talk awesome books all night.
2 hours, yeah. Wait, let me get a glass of wine, then we'll really start talking. I highly recommend, now, I don't know, Steve will like this one, but The Change by Kirsten Miller. If you have not read this, you need to read it. It is a menopausal revenge fantasy. It's hilarious. It's got a little bit of sort of magical realism in it. It's 3 main characters, 3, strong women who are smashing the patriarchy, but in a devious way, and getting away with it. Yeah, oh my God, it's so good. Yeah, I loved that one.
I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to say thank you for joining us.